Welcome everyone. My name is Suzanne Pachetti Johnson. I'm with Avenues to Wellness, and we are a program of the Frank R. Howard Foundation. Today our topic is the impact of the pandemic on the youth of our community and ways that we can support them. We have a panel format today, which will be led by Aurelie Clivaz. Aurelie is a training coordinator for Mendocino County Youth Project, and she is also the program manager in prevention and early intervention for Mendocino County Youth Project. In her role as training coordinator, she hosts trainings for adult helping professionals, and this year she is leading an intensive trauma-informed integration project in 8 different sites. In her role as a program manager, she provides a wide variety of services to the youth of our community and to their families. She provides direct counseling, wellness counseling, support groups, social and life skill lessons. She connects families to resources. She runs a free clothes closet. She operates a 24/7 low-level crisis response service, and she hosts prevention activities. She is truly a pillar of our community, and we are really lucky to have her. So I'll turn it over to you now, Aurelie. Thank you so much, all of you, for being here today.
Thank you. Thank you. Quite an introduction. I appreciate that. I am just one of a whole team, so I'm lucky to be supported by a wonderful agency that is providing those services countywide as well. Have the privilege of sitting here this evening with 3 wonderful pillars of this community as well here in Willits. Incredibly privileged to be part of such a dedicated group of adults who really care from the depths of their hearts about providing good services and providing genuine education for young people. We have a representative here from Willits Charter School, from Willits High School, and from Bechtel Grove Middle School. So I will let Billy introduce himself.
Hi, I'm Billy Hetherington. I do counseling over at the Willits Charter School, working with the 6th grade through 12th grade. I also extend that out to the Willits Elementary Charter School. And also, I really got my start working with Aurelie with the MCYP and gained a lot of knowledge working with her and that whole team of amazing human beings, and really, cementing my role in this community as a counselor and what I can do to help. So, yeah.
Hi, my name is Toni, Cassidy. I am the school counselor over at Bechtel Grove Middle School, and I've been there for about 4 years now, and it has been fantastic. I feel really grateful to have this opportunity to participate in this panel. Thank you for asking me.
And I'm Marian Lohne. I'm the assistant principal at Willits High School, and I would say that I do everything along the lines to support teachers, students, and all our staff to create a positive environment for the kids at the high school. Under these current circumstances, I'm doing a lot of work with attendance, student engagement, including home visits right now.
So with that, we're recognizing that this panel is asking the question, what is the impact of mental health on youth wellness? And I would say that we're definitely bringing the counselor school perspective. So we're going to be speaking from our own perspective and our own perspective only, and there's a lot of different facets to potentially examine this topic under, but I want to qualify that we're really looking at this from this professional lens. That being said, I'm wondering, Marian, each of you actually, if you could give a little context for those of the listeners who might not know how school is operating currently, just a little kind of soundbite, like what does school look like these days?
Okay, so at the high school we have everything is distance learning at this point. We have students taking 3 classes a day for a 6-week period, and we do have individual students coming on campus, mainly our special ed population, to get one-on-one help at the school. Oh, and we also just opened up our sports on campus as of last Friday. So we have pods of athletes that are masked and socially distanced, doing conditioning drills where they're not in contact with each other. So we have all our fall sports are now doing that, which has been really a uplift for student spirits for sure at this point. So. And then Billy, do you want to talk about your?
Yeah, so at the Willits Charter School, we are also doing distance learning. We're using the platform Google Classroom and Google Meets. I believe the students are doing 4 1-hour or 55-minute sessions a day. I also teach at the charter school too, so I'm teaching Google Meets, which is kind of another version of Zoom. Mondays and Wednesdays from 9 to 1 o'clock, and then we did about a month and a half, I'd say about a month and a half ago, we opened up the school for a small group of, I think we have about 30 kids on site that were struggling with the distance learning, and so we've made it available for them to come on site. We've done a lot of work. Making it safe and keeping things distanced and getting up all the wonderful shields and all that stuff to make it safe for the kids to be on site and get that hands-on learning from some of our teachers, as well as our special ed teachers. And I think seeing the kids on site, you can see the relief of being able to interact with their teachers, and it's been really good for those that have been able to be on site. But other than that, yeah, we're doing the distance learning. Yeah, whole new world.
Yeah. So at Bechtel Grove, we are similar, distance learning, all distance learning with the exception of some of our students coming on campus for one-on-one or 2-to-1 special education services. We have 2 stable cohorts of students who were basically not able to access the technology from their residents. So we have 2 groups of students coming on campus for connectivity. So they're able to access their daily lessons. Each student has between 3 and 5 classes per day, including some sort of physical education where they do live workouts. We have, each student gets about 50 minutes of instruction during 3 separate occasions in block schedule. So the kids are not on as much as we are really trying to reduce the amount of screen time. So as I'm sure I know all sites are. But yeah, it's been interesting. A lot of new skill acquisition.
Well put.
From everyone.
Right, like
Top down.
I know a lot more about Zoom than I ever thought I would.
Yeah.
So I've been, in my role as prevention early intervention specialist in this community, I have been speaking about mental health and wellness for this entire time, and it's really interesting talking about mental health because it's not popular. People don't really want to talk about it, and when you say mental health, people often think of mental illness. And so, and I'm sure we as a group could come up with a list of mental illnesses that are diagnosed that you might have heard of, but I almost just want to set the stage for what are we even speaking about when we're talking about mental wellness in our youth. So I'm wondering if anybody has even just words that they want to throw out that looks like, or just wanted to speak a little bit to when you're thinking of youth mental wellness, what does that mean?
I think I love the word resilience, and I really see that in the youth. I've always been really impressed with the resilience of the youth and adaptability. I think those are 2 key elements, and they kind of go hand in hand too as well. So yeah, resilience and adaptability. Those are my 2 words.
Lovely.
I mean, I think when I think about mental wellness of the youth, I think about, and we're talking about the situation that we're in, of the chronic stressors that the kids are under, and how they're coping with that. Mm-hmm. And I see that, just to have some common vocabulary that we use, and that a lot of people are aware when you've studied trauma-informed practices of fight or flight. And they're very similar in that it's an action that happens when you're exposed to some form of trauma, and one that is now becoming more talked about is the freeze response. And so the freeze response in nature is when a tiger is chasing a gazelle. And so that's the flight, right? The gazelle runs. And then once the tiger catches the gazelle freezes in order to possibly survive, because the tiger will go get its cubs to come back and feed, and then it unfreezes and takes action and runs. And I think that's one thing that we're seeing with the kids today is being stuck in the freeze, because they're facing this trauma every day, and then, so that's frozen.
Frozen. Yeah.
Is the word that I think of when I think of the mental health of the kids today.
I agree with that, for sure. When I think about mental health with working with kids at Bechtel Grove and in middle school, I think about skills that I see this situation, this current distance learning situation, is requiring our students to have skills that there is no possible way they could have developed at this point in their lives. So then, that is the opportunity for education. And us as professionals working in education, it's a great opportunity for us to see kids every day through Zoom or through whatever access we have to start teaching students and teaching our kids how to recognize emotion and develop skills by, in my opinion, modeling what that looks like. What we do when we feel overwhelmed, what we do when we are in that freeze that you're talking about. And I think about it as immobilization. So overwhelmed, I can't even start. And I hear that from kids a lot right now. So my thoughts are education and skills.
Yeah, all of that does lend again itself. I land with the word resilience as well, which is this, and something to the effect the Mental Health World Organization defines mental health as the ability to adapt to change. And so we bring this adaptability in there, and that really is true even for, I'm witnessing that for the adults. The most well put together adults I know are having a very hard time staying grounded and taking care of themselves. And for me, mental wellness is very difficult for the youth to experience when the adults in their lives are very ungrounded. It's already hard, and so it's easy to want to blame teenagers for being so emotional. One, that's happening developmentally. I really encourage anybody listening to watch the beautiful 10-minute videos on teen development in the brain. But really is that we need to be role modeling mental health, and need to be, and exactly what you're saying, Toni, which is that I have to be able to say, I'm having a hard time right now, and it to be okay, and these are the skills, this is how I work through the moments when I'm feeling overwhelmed. And that, like you said so beautifully, Toni, it's just these are uncharted territories. We're in a new frontier right now, and so how do you both be the leader and not have all the answers? And I feel like that's, we're really looking to adults right now to have these answers, and we don't. We are, right now, these kinds of transitions, I know from the back end of being on a management level, these kinds of transitions could easily take 3 to 5 years under the best circumstances, transitioning into an online platform. And we're doing this, and these folks, I should say, we are all doing this. We're all transitioning in 6 months under where everybody is in a state of crisis and trauma. And so, so really, when we talk about mental wellness among youth, to me, that's inextricably linked to community wellness. And so, and how are we as a community coming together? Because, and at least in my experience personally and professionally, I think one of our biggest social ails is isolation. Anyways, before the pandemic, and so now this has taken us to a whole new level. And so, how do we revolutionize? How do we come together as a community and socially distance and be appropriate, and take care of each other's health? Those are big, really, really challenging questions. And I think we need as adults to be okay with coming together and we can admit that we don't have the answers. We're going to have to get really creative and think outside the box. And that's that adaptability piece. That's what it comes back to, is and I think kids, like you said, are so much better at being resilient and adaptable. I've fortunately been worked with and had friends in my life who have lost their homes and all these things. And the kids are asking, is it normal that I'm not, melting down right now? I'm kind of feeling like everyone else is and I should be. And they're like, and in a lot of ways, I think, the kids are just, they're ready to, whatever you're going to throw at me, I'm ready to just, I'm going to deal with what's in front of me. And not everybody, we all have, there's all kinds of different folks and personalities, but I think the call to mental wellness is not that it's not like, oh, we're mentally well. No, we are, this is a commitment to life. This is a way of living, is to decide every day that I'm going to be mentally well and that I'm going to choose to not succumb to the evil within me. So, again, I'm asking everyone here to speak from your own perspective. Clearly, we're only are acknowledging that we only have our own lens that we're looking through, and yet you guys have your fingers and truly in hundreds of people's lives. So truly, I feel like the reason why we brought you here together is because you do have a pretty good sense on, at least an intuitive level, about what's going on. The data that is going to be indicating what genuine impacts happened here will be out next year. Right now, this is the data right here. This is the intuitive data. So from that perspective, interested to hear what unique social and emotional challenges you guys have been seeing in the youth demonstrating throughout this, since the pandemic. Along those lines.
From my experience, what I'm seeing a lot of is, there's always been a level of anxiety and depression. And in this area and the rural area, and like you said, the idea of being isolated. I've seen that even more so now, and I think we're only getting glimpses because of the fact that we're not getting to see these kids in person. And so we're getting the information from behind a screen or over the phone or through text, a lot of text. And even as a teacher, getting the kids to turn on their cameras is a very difficult thing to do. As far as the social and emotional, these kids, the youth in this area, they're wanting to connect, and they're finding ways to connect, which I've been really, really surprised by. I guess I'm not really surprised, but just really grateful for. In my experience, we've opened up, like we created an assembly page on through the Google Classroom to make sure that teachers can make announcements to the entire school, and the kids on their own have started to connect in the chats doing that, and it's been really supportive and really wonderful. And I think the kids intuitively, in my experience, what I'm seeing is the kids intuitively, where in the past you might see them go down that alley of knocking each other or breaking each other down, are building each other up, or are a little bit more cautious and careful about what they're saying. And so I always look at the silver lining. I always try to look at the positives. I try to find what is working, and that's a lot of where I come from with my perspectives and my views. When a kid comes to me with what they see as all these problems, I try to really highlight the spots where they're doing well. And for me, what I'm seeing is that yes, they are lacking that community, that coming together, that being in the same place with each other. But what's building up from that is their perspective on what each other means to each other. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
In that sense of like where they have never had that before. They might have thought they were isolated. They might have thought that they were alone before. They're really feeling it now, and so it's causing an appreciation for those people around them and any connection they can make in that. And yes, it is. I feel like it is hurting, it is suffering, but there is also this underlying bubbling up, from the dark mire is this wonderful, light that I think is gonna come through. And I'm really excited to see when everybody comes back, how that's gonna perpetuate and how that's gonna continue on. Yeah. I don't know.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lily.
Yeah.
You can go. So challenges that kids are seeing, or that I'm seeing students or children struggle with at Bechtel Grove. So it does, a lot of it does come back to that isolation piece, and that, I mean, in my opinion, isolation, just, from experience, it breeds more isolation unless that is interrupted in some way. So what I've heard a lot of families and children reporting is that they feel disconnected from school and therefore are spending more time alone in their room, are disengaging from family activities, are disengaging from friends. And luckily, some kids are talking about it with the adults in their lives, and we have adults asking for help. But gosh, do I wish it was more of them. Because there's a huge opportunity for families to be able to reconnect in a situation that's really hard. I'm also hearing a lot of kids struggle with essentially mourning friendships that they had daily, that they're having a real hard time maintaining because of the need for social distancing, and each family kind of handling COVID in a different way as to whether or not they are allowing their kids to socialize with other people in person. Activities like sports and things like that have done a number. Like the loss of those activities have done a number on our kids who are super active and used to really participating in a team. That cannot be recreated online in a way that I think that we've been able to figure out yet. Education's a whole other piece where kids are used to having that. There's a different energy when you're in person with a teacher who you feel their care and their kindness and their belief in you in the same room. That feeling is hard to really recreate online as well. So I think that is, kids are having a hard time taking those risks, asking the questions in the classroom, and really feeling confident. And that's changed a lot of relationships inside families. A lot of parents are really struggling with, my kid is a different person since COVID started. And that's a really hard thing to hear and to even start addressing and unpacking from like a school counseling perspective, because there's so much work that needs to be done there. There's a lot of opportunity and ability to turn all these situations that are really challenging into learning about each other and coming together as a community and as families. But we're figuring out exactly how to do it. Kids are doing it a little bit on their own, but I think that they need a little bit more help, and that's really hard. So, yeah.
So I'll speak a little bit to anxiety and depression, and just the format that we are holding our classes in is on Zoom. And so the students, like Billy had mentioned, a lot of them don't like to turn their cameras on. Some teachers require them to turn their cameras on. I know this is kind of like, statewide is something that they're considering, because when you sit in a classroom and whatever the format of the desk is, you're not on stage. The teacher is up on stage, and then you work in your groups, or you have conversations, or all the desks are face forward. So you can kind of be anonymous within the classroom until you're called to present. Well, when you're on Zoom, as anyone who's done it, your face is up there. And I know I'm always like, okay, how do I look, and what's behind me, and who's talking, right? And so you have these kids who might be homeless, are doing Zoom in their bedroom. They barely woke up for class. They haven't showered yet. They're not in their state that they want to be seen. And so that brings a lot of anxiety. And then the fact that they've had to adapt to this new form of schooling and not being successful at that is really making them more depressed. Like they're failing at something new that we're expecting them to be able to catch on to. So we are having some fluctuation in students who in the classroom would be successful because they're hearing the content, they're moving with the content, they're speaking and having conversations with the content. So to replicate that experience, just like sports or whatever online, we're having a challenge doing that in the classroom. And then I also wanted to speak to something that Toni said about, about kind of grief and like grieving. Like these kids have a lot to grieve right now. Mm-hmm. We have, kids who were really looking forward to coming to high school, having a fresh start, our freshmen, having the opportunity to make new friends and to have, new experiences, and that was cut off for them. We have our seniors who don't get to have what they've been looking forward to, their whole high school career, and then just all the other gamut of things, and they're not able to grieve. And so I think they're kind of stuck in that emotion of being sad for a loss that, isn't always really talked about, or, and they're not able to move through that emotion. And yeah, I don't know what else I was going to say.
Yeah, and to echo the seniors too. I mean, we saw it at the end of last year,
Yeah.
and how I had conversations, real close connections with some of my seniors that were in my student leadership class. That they just opened up and said, "This is so unfair,"
Yeah.
and it was a grief. It was like a loss, and we're so built upon working up to something, that goal or that prize at the end, and without the big ceremony, as trifle as that might be, that's so huge for a big part of the population of these kids that go through this high school career, so they can get walk that stage and get that diploma and get the praise and do the party and do the prom. And it's just, it's not there for them, in this setup right now. And I think you nailed it with, it is a grief, and as we know, grief is one of the big things that affect us in our life, so dealing with that and coming from that perspective, it's something good to remember,
And I think maybe acknowledging that as a community, because I think when we grieve together as a community, then we're able to kind of move through that and hold that in common.
Yeah.
And that's something that I think that we're lacking is that acknowledging that and then going through it. So I'll speak a little bit more to what I've seen in my home visits is that everybody is taking the isolation or the pandemic in different ways. One family might. Nobody, only the adults work. None of the kids are allowed to see anybody. They're isolated in their home. They don't even go outside anymore. To groups of, people who get together with 5 different families and they share, the teenagers have a couple friends they go and see. So I'm seeing the results of different interpretations of the pandemic on the students, and the ones who have been really isolated and are alone. I'm seeing depression, withdrawal, disengagement, and it's really challenging when they don't have a way to connect. They have anxiety and depression, so they're not even wanting to log on to connect with their teachers or classmates, and they don't have friends to go on a walk with, and so all they have is their parents. And that is challenging for the parents because they're working sometimes 2 jobs each and alternating schedules when one comes home and sleeps during the day because he works at night, and the mom works while he's sleeping at home, and the kids are trying to operate their computers, and you've got an age range from first grade to a junior high student, and the junior high student is supposed to be supporting the first grader in getting online and doing their stuff at the same time navigating what they're doing. So the youth are juggling quite a bit of responsibility at home that they were not before. Older siblings help with younger siblings, but in this case they're being the parent, the teacher, they're feeding themselves, and it's a lot for them.
Definitely hearing a lot more of that too, how am I supposed to do this and take care of make sure my younger sibling is taking care of their self too as well, and taking care of all their responsibilities. It's throwing a lot on the older siblings for sure. The pressure's real. It's even more so, I think, than what it would be pre-quarantine, pre-COVID. Yeah.
And you have the internet connectivity too. So if you have 4 kids in a household, some of my students that are disengaged are kind of well, I won't do mine. So my sister who's in junior high can do her stuff, and trying to juggle the schedule of the bandwidth or whatever you call that that they have for their internet too. So
Yeah, I think there's a couple pieces that I just wanted to pull out. One was that there really is, we can throw these terms, again, like mental illness, we could say that person has anxiety or that person has depression. That term really has a whole spectrum.
Broad.
Every one of us has anxiety and depression. We just have, some of us are regulated a little better than others.
Yeah.
And some of us have I can't control the knob at all, right? And I get it, it's like it's a struggle. So then that's when it's great to reach out to other folks, and when I'm having a hard time controlling the anxiety and depression, because I think those are natural things. But right now, the idea is that it comes back to that discussion you guys were speaking to earlier around being immobilized. Something else I want to cover, one of our specialty focuses is in homeless prevention, and so I did want to speak to specifically how it's like if you went to school and you don't have the cool backpack and you don't have the cool shoes, well, we kind of know who has money and who doesn't. But right now, what's happening is that, like, I don't know about yourselves, I think we were joking about it before we got on camera, but like even for ourselves in our own homes, and people is like, where do I go and how do I control the uncontrollable environment in my home? And then really I might see how well kept it is, and then really there are people who are homeless right now. And so what are you doing when you're, where are you doing your work when you don't have somewhere to be? And so those are just to put out kind of, again, the nuances, the vast variety. And there's a lot of people, I can't say it's all bad. I've talked to quite a few kids. I've been talking to dozens of kids about this topic because of this moment over the last couple weeks. And there is the full spectrum. There are kids who are absolutely heartbroken and really connected to sports and clubs. And there's all these different, ceremonies. And, these ceremonies really are our cultural traditions. And so this is not just high school graduation. These are our ritual, our cultural rituals. But there are also kids who are like, I hated going to school, and I hang out with my friends.
Yeah, they're loving it right
way
now.
Easier, I'll tell you. I'm definitely interacting with some kids who are like, I won't be sad if this is always the way it is.
And we have a lot more kids working too. You know what I mean? Like now they're able to work their schedule so that they can have jobs in between.
Yeah, and it's, once again, to the perspective, for all those kids are like, oh, I want to do homeschool or independent study. Well, here you go. How well are you doing with that? Now you get to feel what that's really like. And like you said, some kids are really successful. This is the best thing that could have happened for them in their education. And then other kids, it's just the toughest thing in the world. They need that in class, that teacher right there, that presence of somebody that does care for them, because once again, for some of these kids, school is the safest place for them, and it is a break from whatever their home reality is. And I worry about those kids, and what their daily life is going through, and once again, I just the resilience and the lessons that they're learning from this, and I just hope they're able to see how strong they really are.
Yeah, well, and the more that we can show up and make that reflection, right, the more it happens.
One other thing that struck me too, with something you said was, for those how hard it must be for some kids to ask for help and advocate for themselves, knowing that everybody else is going through this too. Like, how do you ask for help when you know that everybody else is having a hard time? And I've been really surprised by those kids that might normally not ask for help are speaking up and advocating for themselves.
Nice.
Yeah. I've been really in my personal experience, I've seen a little spike in that, and that's been one of the surprising things that I didn't expect to see coming from this. I mean, when we're going into the school year at the beginning of the year, I was talking to another counselor, because we got another counselor this year, which I was like, oh, thank God. And we're like, okay, are you ready? Because is this going to be a wave that crashes over us, everybody needing our help and just not knowing what to do, or we're going to have to dive in and really go above and beyond to kind of extricate some of the problems. And I've been really impressed with the amount of kids that are coming to us and saying, hey, this is what I've got going on. And I love that. I mean, that's, once again, seeing the silver lining and seeing the strength come from these kids. And I'm interested to see how this manifests, or what this manifests into in the future of things. So,
Thank you, Billy. That was actually kind of the next question, is if there was any, you guys already all spoken to pieces of it, but if there's anything else, any specific things that you guys are seeing around resilience and strengths that you're seeing in youth that are surprising or on point, or?
I mean, I really see them taking some initiative, you know, and like stepping up to the plate and, you know, looking for solutions, looking for connectivity, supporting each other. That's happening quite a bit with students. And, you know, like we just started, the Latino Club started up again, and it was their idea to do it. Can we do it on Zoom? And will you be our, you know, advisor? And I was like, what? Yes, of course. Like, I will be on your Zoom call from 6 to 7 at night every week for sure, like, because you want to,
Yeah,
you
because
know,
you're asking
like,
for
yeah,
it.
so,
Yes, yeah.
you know, they are, you know, building resilience right now, and so.
And like you said, taking care of each other too. I've been in class and one of the kids is either late or maybe still sleeping. And I'm like, hey, you're friends with that kid. You want to just, you know, throw them? They're like, I'm already on it. And a minute later, that kid's on. Like, hey, sorry I was late, you know. And it's like, awesome, you know. I love that. Love seeing that. You know, they're taking care of one another, you know, and that's special. You know, you gotta really pump that up, you know. So it's great to see.
For Bechtel, I have been so impressed with how our students value their own education. Like I, sometimes doing the academic counseling piece of school counseling feels like you're like, like pulling teeth trying to get kids to like show their investment in their education and in their learning. Sometimes that's what it feels like, you know, working in education, but like they are just doing it on their own right now. Like so many kids are at home, either like all of the circumstances you've described, with siblings that are younger than them, siblings that are older than them, technology that's not working, and they are showing up to learn. Yeah. It is so cool. Like they're showing up in service positions like student council. They want to be a part of our school community. They are starting their own study groups to work to help bring others up to wherever level they need to be to participate in class. And it's just really cool to see. I don't know, I guess like in the years of being at Bechtel, I've just like, I expected to be like, come on, get on Zoom. But there's like so many kids that are just like 8 a.m. I ate breakfast, I showered, I got myself here, I'm wearing my favorite sweatshirt, let's do it, math class. And I'm like, you're 11. Like, it's just really cool. Yeah. I mean, I'm so impressed with a lot of our kids, like, especially for like I think about our sixth graders a lot. They went from Blossom, where they had one teacher, and you know, they had the same classroom all day, and now they have 4 classes, and the format of their education has completely changed. It's a new world, and they have just jumped in, and they've learned so many skills in 2 weeks. It's just amazing. Like kids are they're just so impressive, and the adaptability for sure. I've seen kids develop new hobbies. Like this skate park is full every day.
Yeah.
They might be there during class. I'm just if there's high school kids from 9 to 2:30.
Well, as long as they're zooming on the phone.
They're all skating with their cameras. Like
I mean, I've heard a lot of kids be like, well, I decided I was never really a gamer. I don't really like, you know, Minecraft or whatever, but now my friends are all doing it, and it's a way for me to connect. And maybe it's more screen time, but it's something for them to talk about, which brings them together. And we just don't want kids to feel alone. So I think it's really cool to see them taking initiative to be healthy. And whether or not they know that the choices that they're making are moves towards mental wellness, they're making those choices. Yeah. And they're taking the action, which is super hard when everything's crazy. It's really hard. So I don't know. I'm constantly impressed with our kids. I think they're rad.
And so. Really, like you said, you know, parents, you know, looking to their parents or the adults, like, okay, what do I do? And we're as adults going, we're trying to figure it out too. And so, yeah, exactly. Just keep going. That they're going, okay. well, I guess I got to step up, you know,
Yeah.
and I'm seeing a lot of that, you know, I'm feeling a lot of that from the kids, and yeah, and even with my own kids, I've got a 6-year-old and a 10-year-old, and you know, they're having to do. I mean, my 6-year-old we're over the bump of it, and now it's like it's no problem. It's like, you know, you got to be on at 9, and he's there, he gets it done, and then he's just checking off the list, and he's like fired up. What's next? What's next? And my daughter as well. I mean, she is just she's an amazing student. I've really been impressed with her keeping up and even going above and beyond and being inspired, and you know, I mean, it's just like anything that's, you know, not just sitting here not doing it something, you know, it's like this, you know, it's so important to have this connection either with you know, with their friends through school, or just having their mind stimulated, you know, and I think they're really appreciating that. And I hope that continues on once they're back in class. You know, it's not like, okay, we're back now, check out. It's all right, cool. I'm really like, what are we going to learn today? You know, so I hope to see that perpetuate.
Yeah, I mean, with the gratitude that I feel and the, you know, the momentum of going back into school, I feel like it's going to just catapult this into a whole nother realm of education.
Yeah.
You know, when we're all back together.
Mm-hmm.
Wonderful, so inspiring.
Almost makes you wish you were in high school right now.
Right.
You know what I would do?
I won't go back there for $1 million myself, but I can see. Genuinely, there, like I said, a huge spectrum of anxiety, depression, all kinds of things. Personally, I really am very cautious about, you know, encouraging, you know, going and getting psychiatric medicine or any of those kinds of things. For me, there are certainly some conditions that I've heard, you know, and I'll just name them specifically: schizophrenia and bipolar, where having a professional, if you're like feeling like somebody's very unpredictable, and you're like, I might just look up what some symptoms are, and you know, and then I'm going to go see a professional, and you know, they're potentially, sometimes when there's like chaos with somebody, there's actually a diagnosable condition that can be supported. And so don't diagnose yourself, don't have the parents diagnose, don't have the, you know what I mean, like go to the doctors, go to the psychiatrist, and just ask. As a parent, you don't have to take anything, you don't have to accept any specific medication, you don't have to accept a specific diagnosis. I've seen over time different psychiatrists diagnose the same kid with different symptoms or different diagnoses, so it's worth shopping around. I'll call you, like, as a person in the community, you have the right to try different therapists. If a kid says, well, I've tried therapy and I don't like it, it's like, guess what? I went to 6 therapists in this community before I found the one that really speaks to me. And I personally, in this field, it's like I will be going to therapy till I die. Really, it's a full-time job. But really, to encourage, you know, part of what I'm also hearing in these themes is reaching out, having community, figuring out. And so in our culture in general, my experience, speaking for myself, is that we're not very good at asking for help. We're not very good at admitting. And there's such a stigma on mental illness, you know, when it actually is something diagnosable, that there's good reason why people don't want to admit or think about it, or, you know, self-medicate, which I see a lot of people in this community, you know, community do. Lots of people calling it, it's fine, use marijuana recreationally, but calling it medical marijuana in a lot of cases is questionable in my experience and from what I've witnessed. And so, you know, let's just name things for what they are, like, you know, so I think it's really, really important, though, to be comfortable reaching out, asking, and then maybe you don't like it. Like, cool, I go to a therapy session, and I'm like, this isn't for me. Like, it's not for everybody, and there's lots of different paths to wellness. My cousin was severely addicted to cocaine and walked the pilgrimage in Europe, 1,200 kilometers, and put a stone down that he carried the whole way, and he hasn't done coke since 10 years ago. So there's 1,000 ways to wellness, 1,000,000 ways to wellness. And so, but if you're feeling like somebody is really having some concerning symptoms and some things that you're like, this is really confusing, this is really not making sense, it's not, and so sometimes it really is a neurological thing, it's a biological thing, and so there's reason and to go see professionals. So my long-winded intro to what symptoms or signs or things might you have seen, or would you, if you have not seen them, would be like, those are things that, you know what I mean? Like I said, we all have it, but what's the point where, okay, it might be time to go ask for some help?
Yeah. And it's important to remember too, everybody's under the microscope now, because they're spending a lot more time together. So things that, kids might have been able to hide by not being there and being with their friends and doing whatever they need to do to maybe normalize themselves or connect or that sort of thing. They don't have that access as much anymore, and they're under the microscope of their parents, so their parents are there, getting to see them a lot more. So to be careful not to I guess, misdiagnose or overdiagnose, or like you said, to not, unless you're the professional, unless you've got, the years of experience and you've done the studies, to not assume, but to, go to those people that do know and have that ability to diagnose. I'm sorry, what was the question?
Well, I'll speak to like something that I'm really concerned about, and I know we all are, is the increased rate of attempted suicides and people considering that as an option.
Right.
and a way out, in our community heading into the winter. We were talking about opening schools back up because we were in the red. Now we're back to the purple. And so like these kids get this hope. And today I was just like, we're not going to close sports down again, are we? We just open them up. So you get the kids this hope, and then you crush them again. And so I'm just highly concerned that that's going to be something we're going to be facing in this community is the youth,
Suicidal
ideation as a way out of the situation that we're in. And to look for the warning signs of that, with the kids being extremely isolated, saying, I can't take this anymore, it's not worth living. So that's a concern too.
Yeah, when I think about all of the concerns, like we don't want our kids to emotionally suffer, right? And it is very different not being able to see them. We can't tell you can tell a lot by kids' body language, by their changes in their communication style, changes in their attendance at school, academic performance. There's a lot of indicators that we can recognize as a school normally in person that we can't necessarily access the same way. So it's taking a lot of bravery from kids and from parents to speak up and to say, I don't know what to do. And I feel for me this year, I have had less reports of suicidality and self-harm because the kids we can't physically be in their presence. And that makes me really concerned. Mm-hmm. Because on average, the numbers really won't change that much year to year. And we know that when people are isolated and emotionally suffering, those numbers go up. And we know that people are isolated and emotionally suffering. So I'm just worried that, I don't know of a better way to put it, and that what are we missing? Like, how much are we missing? Right. So, like, for me, in talking with kids, when kids feel comfortable talking to teachers and saying, I just stopped coming to the meetings because I don't know why. Well, I don't know why is a really great opportunity for us to take the time as a parent, as a community member who's close with a kid, as a school counselor, whoever, to really let that kid talk, to open that up and say, okay, I don't know why. That's okay. You don't have to know. But tell me a little bit about what it feels like when it's time to log into your class. And even that simple question can prompt a kid to just unload. And then you know a lot more about what they're experiencing. So, I don't know, I feel like take the opportunity if it's given. Don't be present in the conversations with our youth right now. And I mean with parents as well. I'm learning a lot about what it's difficult to see as a parent when you're focused on all of the pieces, like the financial hardship that's happening right now. I'm a teacher, I have to get my kids better internet and financial hardship at the same time. Like all of the challenges that are coming up, how do you slow down, you know? And the school's like calling you to say, hey, your kid hasn't come to school in this many days. And, you know, if we don't know what's going on, then it's really hard for us to be able to say, okay, let's pump the brakes on us calling you. Let's find you some support.
Yeah.
So, like, I would say that piece, which is, you know, I don't really know if I answered the question at all, but I'm gonna now. Look for drastic changes in behavior of your child or of a child that you know. Look for, you know, increased isolation, like more disengagement from things that they would normally like, you know, things that they would normally want to do, that they still have the ability to do. I would say listen to a child if they say they need help, or they say, I'm overwhelmed, or I don't know what to do. Like, listen, take it seriously every time, because sometimes that's the only words they have to say, you know, I feel like I want to die. Like, that's the word they use, is I'm over, so just pay attention and take it seriously every time. That's what I would say. Yeah, and same with the parents. Our parents really need some love right now.
Yeah, they do.
So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree too.
okay, that's what I got.
Yeah, and we don't, you know, that's the thing about we don't have the data currently for, you know, where it's up and down. So, you know, truly it's just this sense about it, and whether or not it's at that extreme, there's a big spectrum of place where just asking for a little bit of help really can make a big difference. Any other symptoms that anybody else wanted to address about,
Yeah,
yeah?
one thing I wanted to say that I completely forgot is kids are having a real hard time sleeping. And they don't know, like, I just went to a webinar put on by the ACT, and they talked about how kids don't know how to find that scheduling balance without having a place to go. Like, school is a place to go, clubs are a place to go, you know, church is a place to go. Like, they don't know how to manage the energy that they have in their body, because, you know, why would they? Most people don't, I might say. But they are not sleeping. Kids are really struggling with that. And then, you know, so, you know, that's another symptom I would pay attention to as a parent or as a teacher or anyone. Like, if you hear a kid say, I can't go to sleep, we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, Toni, everyone, I love how every time one person is saying something, and that leads to the next question, which was, what are, you know, and what do you all, it's our last question for the evening, at least for myself, is what's important for parents, concerned community members, youth involved, adults, to be paying attention to? So all those things you just said, absolutely the speaking to, and what else? What are the important things just beyond professionals? Because that's potentially one thing, but really we know that professionals just kind of are part of the solution. It's not like what you really want us to be working on, the social networking and the support happening inside. So inside the family and inside that young person's community. So what can folks do?
I mean, like, when I'm out there and talking to kids, like, the first thing I say is, you need to get outside and you need to exercise. You need to get your heart rate up for at least 20 minutes every day. Like, that's one thing that I feel like everybody has access to, right? We can all walk, and that's one of the things I do is exercise, and so I feel like that's gonna help them. It's gonna give them the action. They've been sitting in front of the screen all day, and walking is gonna help them release some energy and to process some of the emotions that they're having. And the other thing I would say that they have access to is connecting. Like, make an effort to connect with somebody, whether it's another student or an adult. Like, those two things, without going into, I think you're going to talk a little bit about community resources as well, but those two things, we all have access to a phone, you know, we all have access to exercise, and I think those two are that's like our key survival pieces right there, going to be those two things.
I see a lot of kids that thrive in structure, you know, really building that schedule for yourself, or, you know, having that schedule built for you and sticking to it and having somebody call you out. I've been so surprised running student leadership how many times I've, you know, put out the question to my class, Like, hey, could you, come up with a couple of rules, and they come up with like 5 pages of rules, and or, they've said straight up, like, we want structure, we want to know what is acceptable and what's not acceptable, and we want to be called out for it. And it just blows my mind because, me as a kid, I was like, dude, I'll find, I don't need any of that. I'll make it up on my own. But no, I've had the kids tell me that. And every time, it just really solidifies that, yeah, structure is a big part. You say, this is what the schedule is going to look like today. It gives them something to depend on, something that they can really latch on to and go, oh, cool, it's 9 o'clock. This is where I'm supposed to be. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. And I think I think most students will appreciate, that sort of aspect in their lives and gain from it too.
Yeah, you talk about structure and schedule is something that I think of too.
Yeah.
Like a lot of the kids, it's hard for them because they don't actually get up, take a shower, eat breakfast. They're like rolling out of bed and turning the camera
Right.
on, and then not turning the camera on and sleeping.
Right.
I mean, I learned that after college. So.
Yeah, I did this a little bit in college too, so I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying it's happening.
Yeah, they're getting their college, experience a
pre-college
little early.
experience now.
Yeah.
Really early in kindergarten. So what can we do? I think there's a lot of opportunity. For parents, I would say a common thing I hear is that they're always talking about school with their kids. They're always talking about, where are you in your class meetings today? Did you do your homework? And it's like, it's different from how it was before because they saw them go. They saw them come home. And they did the stuff when they were at school. So now I would say, if you feel your relationship with your child centering around conversations about school, stop. Stop. Take a breath. Take that time that is not school time. We're not going to talk about school at this part of our day or at this. And I'm not saying school doesn't matter. I don't want that. I don't want to give that impression. But I am saying that if I was to choose between my child's relationship with school and my child's relationship with me, I'm going to choose my child's relationship with me and my family. And I get that with school and applying to colleges and all that, like, and our learning, like, the stakes are high. But preserving that family culture and relationship is more important. And so I would say make time as a family to go for a walk.
Mm-hmm.
Make time to dust off the stupid checkers board game you haven't used in 15 years. Like, make time to connect and not talk about, did you do this? Did you do your chores? Make time to be together. And I would also say encourage communication. Schools are allies right now. Community organizations are allies. We all do the jobs that we do because we want to help, and that's our primary focus, is to be support. So I know sometimes it's hard when things get hard, when all those pieces are challenging, like the financial piece. There's so much that can be going wrong right now, but we're not judgmental. Like, it's inside of us to be supportive, and so you can tell us your stories. Like, you can talk to us, because what we really want to do is help you. So I would say, if you know a family that's struggling and you're a community member, encourage them to speak to the school, because we want to help whoever it is that they trust at the school. And if they don't trust anyone yet, find someone. We're there. There was another thing that I was going to say, but I'll remember it once you guys start talking again.
I want to pipe in on with the structuring and the scheduling too. Is take that time with your kid and have them build that structure and that schedule too. Have them have some buy-in, and you might find out something about them, or find a little corner or a little nook or some place where you guys can both be excited, or everybody can be excited about that moment, that 10 minutes or that half hour, like, or taking that walk or riding that bike, or we spend, an hour wrestling every night, much to my But it's just, it's recess,
Nightly
it's
recess.
something, or, we do the Just Dance or something like that, and we do that as a family, and it's goofy and it's silly, and the kids love to do it. But finding that place where, they can have some say and they can have some buy-in, and working that into the schedule too. You might learn a lot when you open it up. What do you want to do? How would you like to use this time? And seeing where that takes you. Yeah. And the connection, the family connection, that's another thing. Going back to the silver lining. We're all on these schedules where we're seeing our kids go, and then we're off doing it. We're seeing them at night, and it's, hey, how was everything? And then they're into their rooms and things like that. Now we're having this opportunity to spend a little bit more time with these people that we've created and made the choice of having them in our lives. Let's get to know each other a little bit more. Let's take this opportunity and really, see what we're about and relish in the things that we've passed on and cringe at the other things that we've passed on. But yeah, take that what a wonderful opportunity it is to really get to know our young humans and what they are and what they're going to be about and what they're about now, and just have fun with it. Yeah, there's always room for fun in my book.
Yes, there is.
That's why this guy is so popular with the young people.
Yeah.
So.
That's why we've been friends for so long.
Exactly.
I'll roll on something that you said, Billy, which is this notion. One of the things that I feel like conversations I've been having, I've been doing this work for 12 years in this community, and it feels like one of the quintessential dilemmas of being a teenager is trying to regain power and control. And really, let's get real, in this culture, being a teenager is quite disempowering. There's really not a whole lot about power and control and empowering choices. And so one of the things that and as a parent, you can't be like, okay, well, you can choose to either not do school or do school, right? You give them choices. You're like, here, you could try, have this try, or, what I mean? You're giving, again, try and encourage giving options that are within the spectrum of what it is that you're hoping, what I mean? Doing a little bit of management there, but providing, some kids really are not, if we're talking about routine, are really not as awake in the morning. So if it works for them to do a schedule from 10 to 5 better than it does, you know what I mean? And so if school permits, just really working, I think, and empowering young people to take on as much power and control as they possibly can. I think my experience is that most adults underestimate how competent, how resilient, how capable young people are, and then we disempower them until they're 18, and then we want them to miraculously all of a sudden have the skills we haven't been fostering in them. And so for me, I think as much as we can be fostering these and recognizing their resilience and supporting them, and that's what we, our case plan and our counseling isn't a normal case plan, which, some treatment providers are much more like, all right, I'm going to come up with, this is how we're going to do, and this is what you're going to, steps towards success. And for us, I show up as a professional with young people. I don't have any answers. I am a good guide. I have structure. I have, these are these 3 options, this way and that way. If you get somewhere and you pass your turn, I'm going to recalibrate at, Humboldt and 99 Humboldt Street, and we'll figure out from there where your next destination is. And so for me, it's really, I think I heard it over and over again this evening, is listening and being present. And kids don't necessarily have all the right language to communicate how they're feeling. And so I'm stuck or I'm right can mean a lot of different things. And so taking the time to ask questions about when you say stuck, what does that look like for you? What does that feel like? And really taking time to pull apart some of these young kids' experiences, because so often some kid will not be participating in a class just for some very simple, pragmatic, logistical thing, that if we were to address this anxiety in this situation, or we were to address, these very little things, I think it's really important. Something else that I really want to encourage is there's a 463 helpline number, and I'm a resource. Billy knows, and all these people know that I'm really kind of known in this community as a resource hub. There's amazing things happening in this community. There are amazing resources even my colleagues don't know about. And there's really, unfortunately, everyone's so busy doing what they do that there's not a lot of communication and services are being underutilized. And it's just unfortunate. There's a need, and there's resources in the community. So other things as far as role modeling is, again, I love this concept that I've been introduced to around self-care, not as pampering, but as self-care, as really taking care of my fundamental needs, as eating and slowing down. And it's so easy to be stressed out and be running all over the place. And I'm finding more than ever that I am being demanded to stay present and to take care of myself in a really good way in order to be able to show up for the young people and the people who I supervise and all these things. Is that if I don't take excellent care of myself, I am not capable of showing up for my young people. And not that I need to have all the answers when I show up, but that I need to be able to at least be grounded and present in my own body in order to be able to say and admit in some way that doesn't make them ungrounded. Is like, I don't need to have all the answers, right? And I can show up and be like, I don't have all the answers, and we're going to figure this out together, you know? And that attitude can show up with schools, with teachers, with parents. Is just that we're in a very strange time. I can't give you guarantees. There are lots of kids who, well, when are we going back to this, and when is it? It's like, I can't give you answers that don't exist, you know? And so being the parent that's brave enough to say, I don't have the answers, I don't know. And so that's a very difficult thing.
It is. Yeah, recognizing within yourself your own shortcomings and not, getting puffed up about it, and it's tough, man. It's tough, yeah.
And then the other thing, and I heard Toni speaking to it, is just trying new things. Like, I tried 10 different dance and martial arts class before I found the one that was really me. And just trying to get kids involved, you just never know what is going to spark somebody's interest. And I'll tell you, most of the kids that I've seen go from just kind of having a hard time plugging into the world, go into really plugging in is when they find something they love. So supporting young people in finding passions, trying new things, and in order to kind of role model that, maybe you need to go do a little TikTok dance thing that you were like, so embarrassed doing, or whatever, So really, for me, encouraging the fun and the silly and the trying new things and being like, I don't understand how to use this phone. First, please, any young people want to help me? Really taking opportunity for them. They actually know some really great skills. So I love any opportunity I can get a young person to show me something I don't know. Is a really, there's something that happens in those moments where all of a sudden I'm shifting the thing. I'm coming to you as a student right now. I don't know how to use this stupid Instagram thing. Please help me understand what is going on here. And then the other thing that I'll just say at the end of that is saying I'm sorry when I'm sorry. Not lightly, but just being willing to say, I was really kind of stressed out earlier, and that came out a little sideways, and I acknowledge that. I'm working on it. So I think those are concrete things that as a parent I just have seen, the times that I've seen adults do that with young people. It's amazing. The kids want to forgive, they want to understand, they want to, and so not putting it on them. I know adults who tell way too much and put way too much on their kids. Not that, but also just I'm human. I'm a human being, and it's okay. And we're gonna figure this out, and it's gonna be hard, and there are gonna be good days, and there are gonna not be good days, and we're just it's all good. We're gonna get there together. So that's what I've got. Any other thoughts?
I think to add on just to tack on the end of that, letting your kids be human.
Yeah.
I have a lot of parents who are, this is the first time my kid has ever lied to me about their homework. That is an opportunity for you to say, yeah, you messed up. Let's talk about it. I've messed up, and that's okay. And now we know the truth. So tell me the whole truth. Let's do it. And it's just, it's frustrating to hear that as a parent and to feel powerless, but you're not powerless.
Yeah.
The kid wants to connect with you, they do. So there's so much to continue to talk about, but yeah, I don't know. Is there anything else you want us to talk
You know,
about?
and yeah, like, you know, just to tack onto that too, admitting the mistakes. I think that's such a big one because mistakes are, I mean, I'm dealing with this with my son, my 6-year-old. We had this conversation today that how much you learn from those mistakes and how it is okay to make mistakes. And your best growth comes from those moments and setting up the forum for those kids to make those mistakes and feel comfortable enough to make those mistakes where they're not going to be shamed for it or get down on themselves for it. That's the hardest one to deal with, you know, when you see somebody that is failing on something and then they just take themselves down this real bad trajectory, this downward spiral, but instead changing that perspective into something that this is a wonderful opportunity to learn. And oh my, we've got a saying in my class, feel free to fail fearlessly. It's the 4 F's, and I tell my students that every day. Feel free to fail fearlessly. What that means is I don't know what's going to happen, but I'm going to do it because I know that you guys have my back and we're supported here. And I'm going to gain a moment to learn in this time. It's huge. It's huge. And then when you do see those adults, you know, admitting they're wrong, I mean, it's just one of the most impactful moments going to high school here was when a teacher who was notoriously just a really strict guy that, you know, we all had respect for, but it was respect with an iron fist sort of thing. When he was obviously having a bad day and he said something, one of the students stood up and said, you know what, you're being a real a-hole right now. And everybody went, oh, dude, you're going to die. You know, you don't say that to this teacher. And that teacher, instead of like throwing the kid out of class and making a big scene and just reaming that kid, said, you know what, you're right. And I'm sorry. And I'll never forget that. I take that with me every day into the classroom, how impactful that moment was. And everybody shared. I mean, we were
That
a
just
roughie
gave me
in
the
class.
chills.
Yeah, right?
Because I know how those moments are.
Man,
yeah.
and it would just like, I try to remember that, you know, and I look for those opportunities to go, God, you're right, I'm sorry, I'm human, you know, and how much, just like a big sigh of like, oh my God, you are human, you know, that is such a huge part of it, that admitting you're wrong and saying you're sorry and once again, modeling, you know, what that looks like. We all make mistakes, it's okay. What do we do once we make those mistakes, you know?
Wonderful. Well, as Toni said, we could spend all evening speaking of this topic. Mental wellness, an ongoing job. I want to really echo a couple things that I heard this evening, which was that we are helping professionals, school staff are really here to help. There's a lot of resources and a lot of community. Let's be revolutionary in our thinking. Let's take responsibility for our own wellness and passing and role modeling that on to our youth. And let's be gentle with ourselves. One of the things that I'm remembering and learning really beautifully through this trauma-informed project that I'm working on is that it's maybe easier for us to be trauma-informed and empathetic towards our children and potentially people that we see as victims, but how do we do that with our peers and our leaders and, you know, all those folks? It maybe is not as an easy of a muscle to exercise empathy and to have the first reaction when I'm interacting with people be, we're all having a hard time right now, rather than that person is, you know, we can get carried away in interpreting and get stuck in personalities rather than the principles of recognizing that these are hard times right now, and let's be gentle with ourselves and recognize that that we have the capacity, all of us, really, to truly be resilient and show up and be adaptable. So let's speak to that part of each other and remember that when people are maybe jagged and a little rough on the edges. I know for myself, I just need a little breath. I come back to myself and remember that I want to come from a hard place whenever I'm interacting with anyone. And to me, that's where we really create community. And that's where we really have, because mental wellness of our individuals is reflected in our community wellness. And so and that is held in a larger container. Easy to be isolated in these times, and yet you do have a community here to support you. So please let us know. Thank you all. all so very much for taking the time to sit with us and share your insights and perspective and the work you guys do fearlessly day in and day out. This moment of sitting here is representative of thousands and thousands of hours and dedication of these folks who do most of their work behind the scenes and don't really get recognized for what they do. It's not easy work. So thank you all so much for your service.
Thank you all so much. Really appreciate it.
Yeah.